The most basic example of domination is this one. The knight only has access to light squares, so bishop d5 is the best move for the white player, and now the knight can't go anywhere. So the next move by the white player will be b4, and white's gonna take the knight. Another example is domination with the king. Right now the black knight is threatening to go to e6 or f5 and then attack one of the squares where the h pawn is and then sacrifice. White plays king f6 and now the knight can't move anywhere, and it's going to be impossible for black to stop the white pawn from promoting. The concept of domination is so important that only by keeping it in mind, it can crucially change your game. Believe it or not, in this position there's a domination and the possibility to trap this bishop even though it's in an open game and he's got every square available. Well, not every square, but he's got the full diagonal. The move now is king to b1. The bishop can't go to b2 because of the king. It cannot go to e5 or h8 because of the knight. So you will have to pick these squares. Let's say, for example, f6 will be met by knight check, and when the king takes the pawn, knight e8 will win the bishop, and if the king doesn't take the pawn, then white can promote. And a square like g7 falls into the same problem, knight check, and then after king takes and then knight e8. And if the bishop had picked the square c3, then knight check, and after the king takes, same thing. In this position, the same thing happens. This time the rook will be the dominating piece. The king cannot take the rook because the promotion will come. So the best move now is king to g1. The only squares here seem to be f3, e4, and b7 and a8. Well, bishop to b7, the rook can make a check and the king is forced to take the rook and then we can promote. And if the king doesn't, then we win the bishop. If bishop had gone to a8, pawn goes up becoming a queen, and when the king takes, then rook d8 is a fork. Bishop going to e4 runs into rook e6, and if the bishop had gone to f3, then promotion, and when the king takes, then rook f6. This is an example of how incredibly strong the two bishops are. Now the best move is king to d6, and the rook can't go to f5, h5, they are taken, and so each one of these squares, including e4 and then e3 and e1, neither. So the rooks seem to be able to go to c5 or e2. Well, e2 is met by bishop fork, and if instead it goes to rook to c5, then bishop check, the king will have to move away and then the king can take the rook. Or if rook blocks, then we can put more pressure on the rook, and if the king moves, let's say up, then bishop pins the rook and we will take a next move.